Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this West Yorkshire Combined Authority AGM, and it's the annual general meeting of West Yorkshire Combined Authority. And can I just say, it's great to see you all, and also to our new members, but I'll come to that in a moment. And just to remind everyone, if you would like to speak, it is the button on the right. And if you just indicate, and I'll bring you into the conversation. So the first item is to note the membership of the authority for the next municipal year as set out in the table at Appendix 1. And in terms of changes in membership, can I formally welcome Councillor Scullion, previously a substitute member, now as the leader of Calderdale Council, the appointed member on the Combined Authority. And thank you, Jane, for your leadership so far, even as a deputy and also on the Climate Committee that you're now taking on as well. So you are very welcome. Also, if I could welcome Councillor Claire Douglas, the leader of City of York Council and York appointed member. It's so great to see you here, and congratulations on your win, and I'm sure you'll be a valuable member on our CA. Also, Councillor Alan Lamb, as one of our two Conservative members on the authority, you are incredibly welcomed, and I know you'll give us great scrutiny, as you should, during items that we're discussing. So thank you for that. With that in mind, I wonder, actually, I'll just say hello to Fatima Khan Shah. If you would stand up for me, just to say hello. Fatima is our new inclusivity champion that is supported by the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, but also the Integrated Care Board, helping us as an organisation close the health inequality gap across West Yorkshire and to tackle inclusion and diversity challenges. So thank you so much for attending, and for members of the public who've joined us today as well. So just for new colleagues, I wonder if you could just quickly whiz around the table just to introduce ourselves so you get an understanding of who's who. Thank you. So I'll start. Tracy, the Mayor.
Good morning, I'm Ben Still, Chief Executive of the Combined Authority.
I'm Caroline Allen, I'm Head of Legal and Governance here.
Shabir Pandar, leader of Kirklees Council.
Councillor Jane Scullion, leader of Calderdale Council.
Denise Jeffrey, leader of Wakefield Council.
Claire Douglas, leader of City of York Council.
Rebecca Paulson, leader of the Conservative Group on Bradford Council.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Alan Lamb, leader of the Conservative Group on Leeds City Council.
Hello, Councillor Sue Holdsworth, Liberal Democrat Political Balance Member for Calderdale.
Hello everyone, Mark Roberts, Interim Chair of the LEB.
Hello everyone, I'm Luke Albanese, I'm the Director of Mass Transit for the Combined Authority.
Good morning everybody, I'm Simon Warburton, I'm Executive Director for Transport at the Combined Authority.
Hello, Angela Taylor, Director of Finance and Commercial Services for the Combined Authority.
Hi, Alice Hunter, Director of Policing in Barrington Place for the Combined Authority.
Hi, Melanie Corcoran, Director of Transport Policy and Delivery at the Combined Authority.
Phil Wycherley, Interim Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture at the Combined Authority.
Alan Rees, Chief Operating Officer of the Combined Authority.
Susan Hinchcliffe, leader of Bradford Council.
James Lewis, leader of Leeds City Council.
Ian Park, Governance Services Officer for the Combined Authority.
There is a quiz at the end. You have to tell us what everybody does. Ian, I wonder, are there any apologies or absences? A full house, that is fantastic. May I also take this moment to acknowledge that it's going to be Mark Roberts' last Combined Authority meeting as he steps down from the role of Interim Chair, member of the LEP Board at the end of June. Can I take this opportunity personally to thank you, Mark, for all that you've done over the last year. We've really created waves and also built real trust in SMEs, particularly across our region. So thank you for all you've contributed. You were also on the board for the LEP, but also here on the Combined Authority. And I wish you really the best in the future with all your future plans. Recruitment is underway for LEP Chair, and once completed, the proposal is that they will join the Combined Authority as LEP member. However, it's unlikely that we'll be in place in time for our next meeting, which is July the 27th. And to ensure that we retain private sector representation on the authority, it's proposed an existing LEP member is invited to represent the LEP board for that meeting. I'm sure members can support that, that interim proposal. Finally, the report also seeks approval for the proposed voting rights for the City of York Council Combined Authority member and the LEP member as set out in paragraphs 2.8 to 2.10. So can members confirm their agreement to the full set of recommendations as set out in paragraph 10 of the report? Yes, thank you so much. So moving on to item 2, we haven't got any apologies. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest they wish to declare? No, thank you. So moving on. Item 4, exclusion of press and public. There are no items identified as containing exempt information. Now, item 5, moving on to the minutes of the meeting of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, 25th of May. Any comments? No? We're content to see these as an accurate record. Thank you so much. Okie doke. So moving on to the Mayor's update. It's quite substantive because of the nature of this AGM and looking at the past but also to the future. And it gives us an appropriate moment to pause briefly and to reflect on the year we've had. And honestly, what a year it's been. And to think that this time last year, Boris Johnson was our Prime Minister, it's quite extraordinary, the fall from grace and the changes in political landscape. But over the last 12 months, we have achieved so much. We've introduced Mayor's fares, the £2 singles and daily caps of £4.50, saving passengers millions, and it was then soon copied by government. We've persuaded government to bring TransPennine Express into the operator of last resort and public control, allowing the new management to bring an end to the dispute on rest day working, which I hope will bring passenger improvements soon. And I'm reassured that July the 21st will be when we will see stabilisation of the TransPennine route. I went on my first trade mission to India, bringing back 1,000 jobs in the process. More than 43,000 adults were enrolled on training courses, thanks to our 65 million a year adult education budget, a rise in number of adults on training courses to the previous year. 2,000 more learners in low-paid work were able to access courses, thanks to the decisions that we made locally. We've made progress on mass transit, putting together a team to oversee the delivery of the project. We signed a new partnership with Homes England, which will drive forward the delivery of thousands of new homes over the coming years. And we've invested in culture and the creative industries, working on a Northern Cultural Corridor concept with Andy Haldane, the chair of the Royal Society of the Arts. And the success of the Wow Barn of Leeds 2023 was greater than even I expected. It was incredible, inspiring women into construction and securing a lasting legacy for the barn. But of course, despite all of these successes, it has been an incredibly challenging year for many. Despite the investments we're making into our economy, many households across the region are really struggling. 200,000 families in West Yorkshire rely on food banks. Almost a quarter of children are growing up in poverty. And the news of continuing increases in inflation that are impacting us all will be felt more harshly for those who can least afford it. The Resolution Foundation estimated that low-income households are experiencing inflation up to a quarter higher than those who are better off. And that's why our cost of living fund has been so vital, supporting our local authorities to reach nearly 6,500 additional households with practical help to support people experiencing poverty. Now, the evaluation of the first year of the scheme is in the papers that we've got with us today, and I would urge everyone, if you haven't read it, please do have a read to see how important that support has been and the impact it's had on the people of West Yorkshire. And I'm really proud that we've been able to step in where government have failed. I'm also pleased the Energy Price Emergency Grant has been able to reach businesses previously untouched by our business support programmes, helping firms in need during a difficult year. But that's the year that's just gone. Now we look forward to the year ahead. Last week we formally launched our West Yorkshire Plan, agreed when we met in May, and the 5 missions that we have for 2040. We're committed to creating a brighter West Yorkshire that works for all. And we'll do this by becoming a more prosperous West Yorkshire, with an inclusive economy that has more well-paid jobs, a happier West Yorkshire that has great places and healthier communities, a well-connected West Yorkshire with a strong integrated transport system, a sustainable West Yorkshire that makes lives greener, and a safer West Yorkshire that allows everyone to flourish. Over the course of the next year, we'll be making progress on each of these missions, and the items on today's agenda are a great example of how we are going to start that work and continue with the work that we've already got underway. With £7.5 million of investment in digital and green skills, £2.5 million being committed to our Better Homes Hub, which will enable retrofitting measures across all housing tenures across our region, the beginning of an accessibility programme for all of our 64 train stations across West Yorkshire that are currently have poor accessibility, and improving the scheme to complete a circular cycle route around Leeds city centre. And I'm really thrilled we're agreeing the next steps, as I mentioned, in our closer relationship with the West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board, building on the joint appointment of Fatima as our inclusivity champion for West Yorkshire. And I'm particularly delighted in the commitment to a senior programme manager in our violence reduction unit, taking a public health approach to tackling violence, a fantastic example of how we're intervening early and tackling the causes of crime. And that's just some of what we'll be approving later today. Much more to come, not least on bus reform, mass transit, and building a more prosperous, inclusive economy. So on that note, let us move on to the next item, which is item 7, committee arrangements and appointments. The purpose of this item is to establish committee arrangements for the new year and to seek approval to these arrangements. At the time of the papers being published, the schedule of membership at Appendix 13 was incomplete, as we were awaiting nominations from Leeds City Council to the 3 scrutiny committees. We now have those nominations, which are Corporate Scrutiny, Councillors Jane Dowson and Paul Ray; Economic Scrutiny, Councillor Gohar Almas; Transport Infrastructure Scrutiny, Councillors Kayleigh Brooks and Isaac Wilson. And further, it's proposed that Councillor Jane Scullion will be appointed as Deputy Chair of the Governance and Audit Committee. I'd like to pass over to Caroline Allen, Head of Legal and Governance, to talk us through the recommendations. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Mayor. As you say, this paper formally appoints the committees of the Combined Authority, both the statutory and non-statutory ones, together with proposing the specific terms of reference for each of those, which are set out at Appendices 1 to 12, the proposed appointments to each, the voting arrangements, the chairing and deputy chair arrangements, and the quorum. In that sense, Appendix 13 to the document is a helpful reference because much of this information is contained within that in a table form, which sets out for each committee the different membership roles, including Combined Authority members, local authority co-optees, LEP board members, private sector representatives, and ex officio advisory reps. It also sets out the proposed voting and chairing arrangements referred to in the substantive report. I should say that no substantive changes are proposed this year to either the committee structure or the terms of reference, nor the types of membership and voting arrangements which remain as the previous municipal year. As you've alluded to, individual membership has changed in some instances following nominations from local authorities, and you've provided that verbal update in terms of those additions not shown in that table. I would also draw out that there are some vacancies within the committees at present in respect of LEP member representation, but a recruitment exercise is underway to appoint new LEP board members, following which it's anticipated that wider representation will be proposed onto the Combined Authorities committees. Finally, the report also makes recommendations in relation to the appointment of independent persons. That's set out at paragraph 220. It's a legal requirement to appoint at least one independent person to act in relation to complaints concerning allegations of a breach of the Members' Code of Conduct, and 2 independent persons are referenced there for approval. So, Mayor, unless there are any questions, the recommendations are set out at 10.1 to 10.5, subject to the additional verbal appointments you reference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Are we happy to agree those recommendations? Thank you so much. Moving on to item 8, representation on outside bodies. This item is to confirm which Combined Authority members are to represent the Combined Authority on external bodies. The proposed appointments are set out in the appendix. I'm going to take that as read. Are we happy to agree the recommendation to approve the appointments? Yes, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Please could I just add on this item, for TFN board, there is also a requirement for a private sector, which has traditionally been a LEP board member. We picked this up at the LEP board. I'd just like it noted in the paper. There are other outside bodies such as MP11 and also NPIF that I think it's important to just capture now that the LEP is being integrated into the Merrill Combined Authority. Thank you.
That's incredibly helpful, thank you. And the contribution from the private sector members on TFN were always incredibly valuable. And that's noted, Caroline? Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on. So are we happy to agree the recommendation to approve? Thank you. Moving on to item 11, the Corporate Governance Code and Framework. This is the oh no, sorry, I've missed one. Item 9, officer arrangements. This report seeks approval to delegations to officers. It's only a minor amendments are proposed to the arrangements and shown in the appendix. Caroline, anything further to add?
I think, Chair, I should just start with an apology because I've realised the appendix to this report, although it contains the minor revisions, doesn't show them as track changes. So I've just spotted that. Perhaps if I just spend a moment just highlighting what those are for members. They are contained in the appendix, but they're not shown, as I say, as track changes, so they're not as easy to locate. So, Chair, if you just bear with me one moment while I pick those up. The first change is to add an addition to the general responsibilities for all directors set out at para 2.9 of that appendix, which is to add to the list of general compliance requirements, the important one of safeguarding, to explicitly draw that out. So that's there as 2.9G. In terms of the chief executive's delegations, there was a slight error in the previous scheme. So footnote 14 to that confirms that for the purposes of this scheme, there's a restriction in terms of the chief exec carrying out the role of data protection officer and not senior information risk officer. As I say, these are minor, but it's the fact they're not track change just seems sensible to highlight them. Under the head of legal and governance services, section 5, we have got this isn't a change in terms of the substantive delegation, which is at 5.7 to negotiate and settle claims up to a certain value. What it does at footnote 24 is clarifies that that value, which remains at 75,000, is the sum excluding legal costs and any sums covered by insurance. So it's providing that clarity as to what the 75,000 refers to, and confirming that in relation to any settlement above 50,000, that's consultation with the Mayor and the Director of Finance and Commercial Services in that statutory role. A similar amendment relates to the Chief Operating Officer at 6.2, just confirming those value requirements in the same way. And I believe that is it. So apologies for having to go through that, Mayor.
Thank you for your eagle eyes that you can find those track changes within your document. So thank you for that, Caroline. Are we happy to approve? Thank you so much. Okie doke. Moving on to item 10, which is constitutional arrangements. For transparency, the meeting is asked to confirm the Combined Authority's constitutional arrangements for the new municipal year, which aren't considered elsewhere on the agenda. Caroline, can you talk us through those changes?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This, again, as a matter of good governance, we bring forward the Constitution for its approval each year. Where we're proposing substantive changes, they are contained in separate items on the agenda. This report references some minor amendments at Table 1, at Appendix 1 to that, which really are matters of typographical and clarification errors. I think the report also points out that during the course of the year, I've also made further minor clarification and update changes to the Constitution under my delegated authority. But this is a formality in terms of seeking that approval, so we're clear as to the up-to-date Constitution for this next municipal year. Thanks.
Thank you. And can I see the approval of members to the documents contained at Appendix 1 and the remaining unamended Constitution documents linked within the report? I can. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 11, Corporate Governance Code and Framework. This is the annual review of the organisation's Code of Corporate Governance. The Combined Authority is asked to note and approve the changes to the current Code of Governance and to endorse the plan to continue to review the code over the summer, with findings brought to the Governance and Audit Committee and Combined Authority for consideration in autumn 2023. Alan, could you talk us through that, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. So the Code of Corporate Governance sets out principles that how public bodies should operate, and that we then hold ourselves to account to. It is generally speaking reviewed annually. What we're proposing this time is that we've done an initial review to make some immediate changes, so the code has been updated to reflect the change from having LEP panels to combined authority committees, the integration of the LEP into the combined authority, and having private sector representatives on decision-making committees, the expansion of our inclusive engagement activity beyond our digital platform to ensure that we listen to diverse communities and engage with diverse communities more, and then finally the adoption of the West Yorkshire Plan and the annual State of the Region. So it's been updated to take account of those few things. However, as colleagues know, there is an organisational change programme going on at the moment. For example, as mentioned in a later paper, there's a review of our assurance framework. So it makes sense for us to continue to keep this under review and bring back a further draft in the autumn to take account of the next stage of those changes.
Thank you, Alan. Are members happy to agree the recommendation at paragraph 10? Thank you so much. Moving on to item 12, Members' Allowance Scheme. This item is to consider and approve the Combined Authorities Members' Allowance Scheme. Caroline, would you like to talk us through this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, the scheme as proposed is attached there as Appendix 1 to the report. There are 3 proposals for change that we are putting forward for members' consideration this time round. The first is in relation to the integration of the LEP into the Combined Authority. There were previously 2 separate members' allowance schemes, and we have merged those into one document. So we haven't, so that's just for clarification, I think, to avoid there being 2 schemes in there. So hopefully that one is relatively straightforward. The second change is a more substantive one, and that relates to the payment of childcare and dependence expenses. And at the request of the Mayor, a review has been undertaken of the level of expenses paid in relation to childcare and dependence, recognising that this could create a barrier preventing members from contributing to the democratic process. So the proposal before members is to bring the hourly childcare rate in line with the UK living wage as determined by the Living Wage Foundation. And on current figures, if these are right, that will bring the hourly rate from £7.65 per hour to £10.90 per hour. The second proposal in relation to dependents, we are proposing that that's claimed at the hourly rate charged by Adult Services Department for domiciliary home care. And those changes are reflected in the draft scheme subject to members' approval today. The third proposal that we're bringing forward is one to remunerate our independent members on the Governance and Audit Committee. So in line with our legal requirements, we currently have not just 1 but actually 2 independent members on that committee, and one of those who chairs that committee for us. Those roles are currently unremunerated, but those independent members do provide a valuable contribution to the work of the committee, and the proposal here is that we move to a form of remuneration. We've done a benchmarking exercise. We've looked at what other combined authorities pay, what other similar authorities pay. I have to say it is quite wide-ranging in terms of trying to do a benchmarking. And so what we've proposed in this paper is that we've looked at the LGA recommended daily rate of £300 a day, and working with officers that work closely with those members, identified how many days they're likely to be contributing. So the proposal here is that the chair is paid £1,800 per annum on the basis of 6 days' work, and the member £1,000 per annum. So the scheme is put forward for members' consideration with those 3 proposed amendments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I would encourage all members to share the opportunity to get support for childcare and caring so that people can attend and take part in committees and so on. It shouldn't be that you are excluded because you can't afford childcare. Are we happy to agree the recommendation to adopt the Members' Allowances Scheme as set out in Appendix 1? including amendments proposed to the scheme set out in paragraph 2.2 of the report. Lovely, thank you so much. Okie doke, moving on to calendar of meetings. Final item of the annual meeting matters. This presents the calendar for the municipal year, and there may be some changes to the dates proposed. Oh, I'm so sorry. My pages must be stuck together. Apologies, I'll go backwards to scrutiny annual report, item 13. This item presents the 22-23 scrutiny annual report. This is the second joint annual report we've received, which summarises the work completed by all three of our scrutiny committees in the 22-23 municipal year. Can I hand over to you, Alan, to briefly take us through it?
Absolutely, thank you, Mayor. So this is the scrutiny, the annual report from the three scrutiny committees. We have three scrutiny committees now around corporate, transport and infrastructure and economy. The report sets out the topics that the scrutiny has been that the scrutiny committees have been looking at. For example, the corporate committee looking at our budgets and business planning processes for the year. The Transport and Infrastructure Committee have in particular looked at real-time information systems, decarbonisation and housing. And the Economy Scrutiny Committee in particular has reviewed labour market evidence, looked at the adult education budget delivery, a range of our economic programmes, and also had a discussion about future economic strategy. And in addition to that, set out on the final page of the report, there has been a Mayor's question time at each of the committees, and the topics that were asked about are summarised in the report.
Thank you. And can I just give my thanks to the members of the scrutiny committees, because I want to lead a combined authority that is transparent and open, and the critical friendship of those members on the scrutiny committee really helps with our thinking, and it is a welcome challenge. So thank you to those members going forward, and look forward to going to the question times in the months ahead. Are we happy to note the report summarising the work undertaken by the overview and scrutiny committees? We are, great, thank you. So obviously I was rushing to the end because this is the end of the annual meeting matters, and this is the calendar for meetings for the municipal year. There are some changes, as I mentioned, to the dates proposed to the Transport Committee to accommodate members' diary commitments. Can we approve the calendar of meetings in the appendix? Great stuff, thank you. So that brings the annual meeting business to a conclusion, and now we can get on to the other agenda items for discussion. Great stuff. Okie doke, so item 15, the crisis in the cost of living and doing business. The people and businesses of West Yorkshire are continuing to struggle with the cost of living and doing business. And as I mentioned earlier, inflation is proving a harder challenge to deal with businesses and households really feeling the burden as interest rates have increased dramatically, leading to higher mortgage costs, rental costs, and financing costs for investment. The Combined Authority has stepped in to support households and businesses with a variety of schemes, such as the Mayor's Cost of Living Emergency Fund, the Energy Price Emergency Fund, and we recognise that to better support the West Yorkshire economy now and whenever the next crisis hits, we need increased devolution from Westminster. So many of our challenges are longer term than COVID or the sharp increases in the cost of living. But with proper devolution, we can put West Yorkshire in a much better position. Can I pass over to Alan Rees for any further points? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So this paper provides an update to the committee about the current economic situation, and then runs through some of the programmes that the Combined Authority agreed to put in place at the back end of last year in order to support businesses and households across West Yorkshire in response to the crisis in the cost of living. Very briefly, inflation, and people have picked this up from the news, inflation is increasing, looking to remain high, and that is leading to continued pushing up of interest rates, making housing, generally speaking, more expensive for mortgage owners, particularly those who need to remortgage in the near future, and renters as well. We've done local analysis, and this was presented to the Combined Authority at the back end of last year as well, around the proportion of West Yorkshire households who are in significant levels of poverty, and in particular, the data shows that around 1 in 3 West Yorkshire households remain in fuel poverty despite the energy price guarantee. There's also information that shows that food bank use across Yorkshire as a whole increased by around a third between 2021 and between 2021-22 and 2022-23. So the Combined Authority in the autumn considered what action can be taken in order to help tackle the cost of living and doing business crisis, and there were two key programmes that the Combined Authority agreed. So the first was a £1 million energy price emergency grant scheme which opened in December, and that has provided grants up to £5,000 to enable small businesses across all sectors to implement energy saving and renewable energy investments, which helps to improve resilience of the businesses to future energy price hikes. And as of this month, we've completed 71 projects with nearly £250,000 worth of grants paid out and more in the pipeline. The second programme that was set up was the Mayor's Cost of Living Emergency Fund, which was in particular designed to help the voluntary and community sector via local authorities to help people with food, warmth and mental health. And the evaluation of that programme is published today and attached to the paper, the interim evaluation, because the programme is being delivered in two tranches. Firstly, £1 million over the winter that has just passed, and then a further £2 million programme. And the evaluation is being used to shape the delivery of programmes under with the remaining £2 million over the coming year. So the fund has provided financial assistance via each local authority to voluntary and community sector organisations to help them to help people most in need. And so far, it's managed to touch nearly 6,500 people against an original target of just over 3,000. So it has had some demonstrable impact on supporting those most in need across the region. So in terms of next steps, particularly with regard to those two programmes, the first is that the Emergency Energy Grants programme will come to an end, but will be immediately replaced by the Business Sustainability Programme, which was approved by the Combined Authority earlier this year. And then the Mayor's Cost of Living Emergency Fund will also continue with a further £2 million worth of funding to be delivered in a similar fashion over the next 12 months.
Thank you for that. Thanks so much. And can I thank all of those partners that delivered on the ground to our communities. They really went above and beyond. I mean, doubling the numbers from what we hoped to what was delivered is just extraordinary. Citizens Advice Bureau in particular really did step up. So I want to thank them for all they've done, and our local authority leaders for acting so swiftly that we were able to turn it around in a matter of what felt like weeks to make sure that money got out as swiftly as possible. Have we any comments? Yes, Mark.
Thank you, Matt, and great to see the initial impact on value for money in the evaluation of the cost of living fund. I guess just beyond value for money, have there been any learnings for how we've spent the first £1 million that would change the way or improve the way potentially that we could spend the next £2 million as we go here? Appreciating that this was set up quickly, I'm just interested in what we've learnt in the programme to date so that we could perhaps make it even better when we spend 2/3 of the funding. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question, and indeed that was the purpose of the purpose of commissioning the evaluation to start with was precisely for that purpose, so that we could take into account those changes. I think there are a number of things that have come out of it, and some of these are about validating the approach we took actually. So, firstly, one of the key lessons learned, which will make sense to everybody, of course, is the real need not to be overly prescriptive with how the money should be spent, and instead consult properly with the communities most in need and consult them meaningfully. The second is not to be overly centrally, again, prescriptive about how the money is spent. So one size does not fit all, and we need to make sure that provision is properly addressing local gaps and different demographics and so on, and also thinking about how you're filling gaps in other services that are existing in each area. There were some issues that came through around the need to collect information about the people who are being supported, which feels like it might be, I guess, intrusive or bureaucratic, and actually it's really important for helping to shape future programmes. There are some questions that have arisen around demand on the voluntary sector generally. So there's a kind of there are some questions about the sustainability of certain organisations within the voluntary sector that I think need to be looked at with the next group of the next part of the funding. And then the final piece is not to be overly prescriptive about specific geographical areas where the money goes, because there are people living in poverty everywhere. So even in places where on a map showing the relative rates of deprivation and it looking like an affluent area, actually there will be people within that area who are also in need. So a few lessons learned which the evaluation has thrown up, which of course will be embedded within the planning for the next session, programme.
Alan, can I ask, have we widening eligibility for businesses to access the energy money from business to business to business to consumer? Is that correct, Phil?
Yes. Yes. So the original criteria widened that access to, and it's one of the first programmes we've done with business to consumer, rather than business to business lending, because we can do that now. So we've got some interesting learnings from that.
Thank you. And that obviously opens it up to retail and hospitality in a way that wasn't available before.
Yes.
It's always good to know I know something. Thank you so much for that, Phil. Good stuff. So are we happy to note the latest economic evidence as well as the policy intervention? I'm so sorry. Susan.
No, I just thought it was worth sort of deliberating a bit on some of these statistics, which are very concerning, actually, I have to say, in terms of child poverty rates and people in fuel poverty. And of course, we hear in the news that inflation is stuck at 8.7%, I think it is at the moment. It's not coming down, and that is concerning for our residents, our businesses, and our authorities, in fact, because we're all subject to those increases. So I just want to really welcome the Combined Authority Emergency Cost of Living Fund. I think it has been useful across the region, and I welcome its continuation. And just looking at some of these figures, the out of work claimant count, for example, is quite high compared to the national average. And I know we've got a great skills programme that works with all the local authorities as a partnership of 6 authorities getting things done. But I just wonder if we can just have a look at that with the 6 authorities working together to see what more we can do in that area, because increasingly households with only one person, well, working households are living in poverty, and that's not their fault, is it? Let's face it. So what can we do to help and to sustain those people to get a higher income somehow? These are really challenging issues. I know there's no easy answers. However, I want to make sure we've done everything possible to support struggling families in Bradford and the wider region. And if we can put a little bit of work around that to see what more we can do, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
And thanks. I think also the data is really important. We gather this data because that's going to help us make decisions going forward about where we best put this money. And also what is concerning is those people who are out of work, who aren't claimants, who are long-term sick because they're waiting for operations or whatever, or it's long COVID. So we're doing a piece of work looking at that specifically as well. But yes, our research and intelligence team have been incredibly helpful gathering this all together to help us make our decisions. So happy to approve. Great stuff, thank you. So moving on to item 16, the Local Visitor Economy Partnership. This outlines the next important stages of our application for West Yorkshire to become a local visitor economy partnership, and this has been the result of a partnership between the CA and all 5 of the region's local authorities. We know West Yorkshire is already on the map for visitors thanks to vibrant cities and heritage-rich towns, offering cultural masterpieces and spectacular scenery in abundance, with the likes of Happy Valley and Gentleman Jack literally showcasing our region on the telly seemingly every night, and has been a real magnet for tourism for people, and particularly for some reason gay women from Tokyo seem to want to come to Calderdale because they love Gentleman Jack. We welcomed over 65 million visitors in 2022 and employ over 55,000 people in the visitor economy. And this joint application is using all of our combined strengths and will allow us to represent every aspect of West Yorkshire's tourism sector, focusing on attracting more visitors and helping businesses to thrive. So if I could hand over to Phil Wychley to take us through the details.
Thank you, Chair. So this is another iteration of this work. So we came to the Combined Authority meeting in March to talk about this, and since that meeting we've been working on with all the local authorities in the region to put this local visitor economy partnership application together, and it's been a result of excellent partnership across the local authorities and us. It's important to note that this is responding to the Visit England DCMS national process around tourism, and it's an opportunity, if only a starting point, to begin to join up the work at a regional and strategic level, celebrating the unique assets we have both in our local authorities, but also providing an overarching structure within the West Yorkshire region to support the sector, which has been really hard hit in recent years, both because of COVID and because of the cost of living crisis we've just been talking about, and to attract more visitors from overseas and from other parts of the country. On the bid itself, it's very much setting out the starting point of all partners, and there's a commitment to work together in this space going forward. There's quite a lot of technical detail in the report, but it's important to note that whilst we put this in, this won't be the final time this comes. So we've commissioned a destination management plan, which is going to provide more detail in terms of a forward look for the tourism sector and our ambitions. And we're going to convene a group with people from the visitor economy sector to help us develop and shape this work going forward. And we hope to find out from Visit England our success in the bid later this summer or early autumn, and we will come back for a further iteration of this in the autumn to the Combined Authority meeting.
Thank you, Phil. And it's building as well on the opportunity that our years of culture give us to really celebrate our region as each year of culture rolls into the next. So we've got a lot to sing and dance about, literally. Yes, Councillor Poulsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, certainly welcome the report coming back to us. Just a couple of things for clarification. Under the Destination Management Plan section 2.2.5, it says the consultant is working with local authorities and also is now engaging with the wider stakeholders. Will that include elected members, particularly those in cultural areas? Because I've had no engagement at all over this from anybody as an elected member. Obviously, clearly, I'm one of many who represent a very cultural, tourist heavy area. And also on the structure, point 2.3.4, what are the plans for who's going to represent local authorities on there? Is that going to be officer-led or member-led? Have we had any thoughts and discussions about that as well? Thank you.
Phil.
So on the Destination Management Plan, the engagement is led by local authority officers in each area. So we are planning on bringing in a wide range of stakeholders into that discussion. So we'll pass that feedback on, and obviously given where you represent in Worth Valley and the tourism assets in there, I hear your point. In terms of the membership of the governance, that's still to be decided. I think what we're trying to achieve is having kind of a working level group, which will definitely be officers, but also having a representation group, including and chaired by the mayor, a variety of people from the visitor economy sector and the regional representation. So I think this is all still to be worked through in terms of the detail of governance, but that point can be noted as we kind of take this forward to the next stage.
Thank you, Councillor Poulsen. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. 2 points, if I may. Firstly, what have we learnt from Welcome to Yorkshire's demise, good and bad? Obviously, it was a powerful brand, but what's the learning as we focus on this and try and build a successful West Yorkshire tourism brand, but make sure we don't make the same mistakes? And linked to that, one of the weaknesses I would say was a lack of measuring of impact. And I think it's really important that we get that right from the start. I'd like to be able to sit and say with comfort, actually, if we spent more money on this, this would be the economic impact, or actually, it's happening anyway, whether we get involved or not. And from the current measuring and the framework with Welcome to Yorkshire, I never felt like we could do that. So is that something that we're looking to address?
Thank you. Phil.
So on the Welcome to Yorkshire thing is a huge topic and one I can't really respond to fully right now. But just to say, one of the challenges we've got in our region compared to other regions is we don't have something like Welcome to Yorkshire existing in place at the time this is happening. So that's a kind of Yorkshire-wide challenge as all of the parts of Yorkshire are looking at how they respond to this. I think in terms of the outcome-driven and focus of this, I think that's a really important point. And at the moment, there is no kind of funding allocated to this from either the national government or kind of at the regional level. And the paper alludes to the potential to consider some of our gain shares being put towards this. If that were to be the case, that would have to be linked to outcomes and that would have to be measured, because that is both the right principles in terms of our investment, but also how we're measured against the government for our devolution deal in terms of our investment. So we would be trying to maintain that. And in response to kind of the Visit England process, that's followed a national review of organisations like Welcome to Yorkshire across the whole country, and how that needs to evolve to support the visitor economy nationally. So some of those learnings have been taken both at a local and a national level.
Thank you, Phil. It might also be worth noting that the Yorkshire leaders have been talking about this as well. So Ben, would you come in on that, please?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. So I think two things, Councillor Lamb. The review that Phil talks about was called the Dubai Review, and that kind of sets the framework for how these LVET organisations might work in the future. So this paper is kind of adhering to those principles. As the Mayor says, there is also work at the Yorkshire level, looking at how you might take the LVET proposals from across Yorkshire and combine them, not in a kind of practical sense, but in a governance and in a working together collaborative sense, in order that the power of the Yorkshire brand is not lost and is not diminished through the fact that different organisations are involved in it. So we'll happily bring some future papers back that explain how that works and then how this work fits into that. That would be useful.
So it's a twin track. So there's a Yorkshire brand, but there's also our own identity, which is quite different to, say, North Yorkshire maybe, and we're deepening that branding for our region. So very happy if we raise that, have more detail for you. Yes?
Yeah, just a quick point on that, and I welcome the response. I think it's crucial that when that's coming back, we have sight of the learning, so that we understand what went wrong and how to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. A very helpful question, thank you. Okie doke, are we happy to approve the joint application for our LVEP and endorse the development of a funding proposal, obviously subject to the assurance framework? We are. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Moving on to partnership working with the West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board, tackling inequality and inequity and injustice, including health inequalities and socio-economic disparities, are priority areas of focus for myself, the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and the West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership. West Yorkshire leaders have come together, recognising the value of collaboration and partnership working around inclusivity and health determinants. And there's a commitment to work together on these issues and jointly resource a small team to catalyse system change. There's a strong base and potential to grow the national recognition for the leadership role that West Yorkshire plays in this area of work. Now, the agreement sets out how we can further collaborate, move from mutually beneficial but separate work to a greater level of more strategic investment in shared capacity and shared work programmes. The purpose of the agreement is to codify the existing strong relationships between our two bodies at West Yorkshire level, to describe our relationship more formally, and to set out the framework for greater partnership working together. Now I'll hand over to Alan just to take us through that, if I may.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So we know that around 80% of the things that generate and sustain good health are things outside of healthcare services. And that includes the wider conditions that people live in, so how they are born, rather the conditions that they are born into, the conditions that are around them as they grow, work, live and age, and the wider set of forces and systems that shape the conditions that they live in on a day-to-day basis. And clearly good health is vital to an enjoyable, meaningful life and a crucial determinant of economic prospects, both at an individual, local, regional and national level. And so the contribution of combined authorities and local authorities is hugely influential in the health of the population. And therefore, we believe that any powers or resources that we have that we can control and influence should look at ways of positively maximising the impact that they are having on the population's health. So whilst we don't deliver health services, we can influence the health of the population. And so we have a shared mission with the Integrated Care Board, and our view is that by working in partnership we can develop and deliver better policies, programmes and services that will improve the lives of people in West Yorkshire. We want to be, our shared ambition with the Integrated Care Board is to be a region that understands and invests in health over lifetimes, both for our current population and for future generations. And so we have been building on the joint work that we have previously done to develop a partnership agreement which is attached, which proposes in the future how the ICB and the Combined Authority will work together on achievement of shared objectives. And that also looks to codify the existing strong relationships that exist already, and in particular with a proposal for the Mayor to become a member of the Integrated Care Partnership Board alongside the Chief Executive of the Combined Authority, and also for the Chair of the Integrated Care Board to become a member of the CA's Place Regeneration and Housing Committee. And then the second paper that is attached is a programme of work which sets out the initial proposals for how we would look to work together on these joint ambitions, and that's split into three sections. So firstly, health and inclusivity in all policies. So this is about looking for all those opportunities across all of the things that we do, whether it's transport or skills or creating of good jobs or housing, etc., for us to be ensuring that when we're developing those policies, programmes, investments, that we are looking to harness them to maximise the benefits to improve health and inclusion. The second is around programme delivery, where there are some specific programmes, such as on housing and on the cost of living, where we are working together to deliver those programmes. And then the third thing is around future ambition, which is about influencing the future landscape, and the Combined Authority and the ICB are engaged in a number of national forums to help shape policy for the future in order to achieve the aims that we've set out. So recognising that everything that we do can, if we harness it correctly, can help to benefit the population of West Yorkshire, even though we are not delivering health services directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. And it was always frustration that we didn't have responsibilities for health, and we knew that there were so many problems that we didn't have the powers to help solve. And I think this is a really innovative way, a partnership that can work collectively across the whole of West Yorkshire, understanding where we can team and ladle resources and be more efficient and get better outcomes. And certainly Fatima is going to help us as well with that work. And I'm really hopeful that we will see in the next year or so some good substantial changes. Susan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, health is a very important part of the work we all do. And I think where the Combined Authority can play a big part is the wider determinants of health. The stuff we were talking about in the previous item about better economy, more money in people's pockets, better jobs, etc. Since we did the devolution deal, we do actually now have more health devolution, but it's the combined ICS, the Integrated Care System of West Yorkshire, which is where our health partners sit as well, which obviously has the involvement of the Deputy Leader of Calderdale as well in principle. So things have moved on the health agenda, and I think it is a good time to have a good partnership between the economic side of health, if you like, the Combined Authority and the wide determinants to give people better health lives, and the social care, operations, the obviously acute side of health on the other side of devolution, which is through the West Yorkshire ICS, which Rob Webster and Cathy lead. So I just thought it was worth clarifying that, as obviously life moved on since the first devolution deal, didn't it?
Thank you for that clarification. And Councillor Poulsen.
Yes, thank you. I think it's quite obviously an exciting move forward for the Combined Authority. It's something traditionally we've not had very much to do with. I think we just need to be careful that it is results driven, and we do see improvements that we're feeding into in health across the whole of West Yorkshire. Obviously some of the systems are different in the NHS, the geography of it, so it's not quite straightforward. And we do need to make sure, you know, we're not duplicating some of the existing systems that are in place. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes in the NHS systems and the work that our local authorities, public health and the NHS are doing. We don't want to just put in extra bureaucracy and not achieve anything. So I do think we need to be mindful of that and make sure it is outcomes driven. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's always a good reminder that we don't want to repeat work that is being done elsewhere. And I think this is why it's going to be, hopefully, a really positive move, that we don't end up with, we currently have two silos trying to do similar things, have similar objectives. If we come together, then we don't have to, you know, we have opportunities to be more agile and to respond more swiftly with greater innovation around the challenges that face citizens of West Yorkshire. But it's a good reminder there, Councillor Poulsen, thank you. Any further comments? Yes, Councillor Jeffrey.
Yes, just for information, in Wakefield, we've already sort of started this as a pilot scheme. Our corporate director for social care and adults is also the head of health, so we can team and ladle and work well, and it's been recognised as a pilot scheme across the region and nationally. So it does work, and there isn't the duplication because we all work very closely together. Just as a point of information for everybody, it works brilliantly in Wakefield.
Well, thank you for your leadership on that, Councillor Jeffrey, and we're all learning from each other, and it's team effort. So thank you very much for that. Okie dokie, are we all happy to endorse this approach and support the work and approve the signing of the attached partnership agreement and reciprocal governance between the Integrated Care Board and the CA through extension of membership of Place and Regeneration Committee to the ICB Chair? We're all happy. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Item 18, Assurance Framework. This is post-LEP integration update. Due to the changes we mentioned previously to the LEP constitution and governance arrangements following the approval of the LEP integration plan, the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Assurance Framework needs amending. This paper and the attached appendix sets out the proposed revisions. The Combined Authority requested to review and approve the proposed revisions, and an update on the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Assurance Framework peer review is also included. Can I pass to Alan for any further comments? And can you keep speaking for long enough for me to get a glass of water, Alan?
Absolutely, I shall keep speaking for long enough to get for you to get a glass of water. The key changes in this, it's not a wholesale review. It's been updated to take account of the changes with the LEP, with LEP integration. So where the LEP functions have been integrated with combined authority functions, the necessary changes have been made. We've also, because of the ending of European funding, some references that were in it around how European funding is to be managed have changed as well. There are a few other revisions that have been made as a consequence to changes within the organisation. And then the final point to say is that the peer review that we have been carrying out has been making really good progress. We've had loads of engagement from people across the region, key stakeholders. We are working through the recommendations from that, and we'll be bringing forward further proposals in the near future about other changes to the assurance framework to make sure that it is as robust as it needs to be, but also it continues to enable swift delivery of our projects, programmes and investments.
Thank you so much, Alan. And it's really important that it is, like you say, robust, but it enables us to deliver at the speed in which we want to go. So thank you for those amends. Any comments? Happy to approve the proposed revisions to the assurance framework because of changes required because of the LEP integration, and to note the update on the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Assurance Framework peer review. All happy to approve. Thank you so much. Okie doke, moving on to project approvals. Item 20. This is investment priority 2, skills and training for people. This report provides details of one programme that's recommended to the Combined Authority for progression through the assurance process. And I'd like to invite Councillor Lewis as our lead on skills, and then Phil Wycherley to outline the scheme for consideration. So can I come to you, Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Mayor. On an item on digital skills, I'm on the wrong screen on my device. Hang on one moment. What I will say whilst I'm finding the correct page is just to, on these projects, just to thank the contribution of the Employment and Skills Committee. We have representatives from the councils, providers and employers, and we've worked really closely on developing these works with everybody involved in it, and the committee has, like I say, does take contributions from everybody involved. The ones that we've been asked today to take forward are ones that have come out of that work with the committee, and it's recognised that the further progress needs to be made on developing digital skills and green and employer support programmes moving forward. It's an area we need to develop more in West Yorkshire. And that's the recommendation we've been asked to look at today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the committee will remember that we committed to 1,000 green jobs for young people, and we're over our target of 1,000, which is really pleasing. But we know that in order to deliver on our climate emergency plans and retrofit, etc., we are going to need digital skills, green skills, and so on, and skills support for businesses. So are we happy to approve this programme, or any comments? Happy to approve? Lovely. The detailed recommendations are set out in the report. Thank you so much. So moving on to investment priority 4, tackling the climate emergency and environmental sustainability. This report provides details of 3 schemes that are recommended to the Combined Authority for progression through the assurance process. And I'd like to invite Councillor Scullion as a lead on climate, and then Liz Hunter, Director of Policing, Environment and Place, to outline the 4 schemes for consideration. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And this is very much a report of many parts, and I think that's one of the things that the Climate Committee does, is basically connect up the various things that contribute to carbon reduction within the region. Can I just say a few words by way of introduction in this report, and there's a lot in it. First of all, about the Better Homes Hub item. We know that actually to achieve our aim in terms of 2038, we've actually got to retrofit 680,000 homes. Now, this report does not cover all of that, but it provides a start, really, very much a start. And we know that this has a real impact on our earlier report to do with the cost of living and fuel poverty. There's a lot more pace to be gained, there's a lot more scale to be gained, but as I say, this is very much a start. And the particular thing that's in front of the Combined Authority today is basically considering the business case to lay the foundation for the programme, and to request £910,000 of development funding, and details are in the report, to build further business cases for the individual projects. And as the report notes, we will actually need a lot more funding to give this area attention, but this is very much about building the foundation. So that's a Better Hubs element of this report. The second part of the report, and I should possibly declare an interest here as somebody who has been badly flooded more than once, but it's to do with the water management within our region. And there's a particular, I think, innovative part of that, the Landscapes for Water, which involves a partnership with the National Trust. I think it's an indication of the way that we're going in terms of the Combined Authority and the Climate Committee, in terms of looking for partnership, of maximising our leverage to bear down on the challenge of climate change. The second part of that is about Chelodine in Bradford. Always love to see mentions of wildlife meadows, always very nice, actually a real function in terms of managing water within our area. And the ask there is about a funding agreement with the Ayers Rivers Trust for expenditure up to 41,000. And all of those taken together are part of the work of the Climate Committee in terms of moving us forward to tackle the question of reduction in carbon. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for your leadership on it, and also the partnership work that you've developed. That's the way to get things done, isn't it? And Liz, I wonder if you've any further comments.
Thank you, Councillor Scullion outlined it all. Just to mention, as rightly said, the Better Homes Hub, we're looking for development funding, and there's also a bid in for the Net Zero Accelerator where there might be additional. So the recommendation on your slide, on your kind of your paperwork at 336 is 2.585. And that's subject, though, to the confirmation of funding from government. So it's the development money that Councillor Scullion mentioned, plus that to help us take forward the Better Homes Hub work.
Thank you so much. And are we happy to approve the 3 schemes and remaining programme costs for natural flood management, flood risk and drainage programme outlined above to progress through the assurance process, and indicative approvals of the CA's funding contribution, full approvals of the CA's funding contribution for delivery and development costs, and approval of future assurance pathways and approval routes. The detailed recommendations are in the report. Are we happy to approve? Lovely. Thank you so much for that. Moving on to investment priority 5, future transport. This is 5 schemes that are recommended for progression through assurance. I'd like to invite Councillor Hinchcliffe as Chair of West Yorkshire Transport Committee, and then Melanie Corcoran, Director of Transport Policy and Delivery, to outline the schemes for consideration.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So you'll see a list of schemes in this paper that have already been through Transport Committee. They are numerous and varied, and the schemes that are listed today for approval are all very good mainstream schemes which are actually going to help quite a lot of people. They are all at decision point 2, so they've still got a way to go in terms of getting through the assurance framework we just discussed to get out to delivery. But just things like the rail accessibility package with 64 rail stations enabling disabled access across the region, I think is something that will be very welcome by many residents who really need greater accessibility to leisure, work and social opportunities. And then, of course, you've got mobility hubs, Leeds City Centre, the cycling routes that have been needed for a while there, and the bus enhancement package as well. So again, everyday transport that people rely on that hopefully will improve with the investment the Combined Authority is making. Melanie.
Melanie, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the rail accessibility package is a programme that's been led by Northern, and they have insufficient funding to look at all the stations in our patch, and therefore we are supplementing that programme with some of our CRSTS funding and working in partnership with them, so that we'll be able to get more for our money. All stations will benefit to a certain extent, but we've prioritised 44 of our stations where there'll be more work done to make them accessible to passengers. So the total value of the scheme is 20.04245 million, and the contribution that the Combined Authority is making is 5 million. The funding recommendation is that we release 337,000 and £100 to allow the development of the work, as Councillor Hinchcliffe said, from the strategic outline case to a full business case, so that we can make progress on that particular scheme.
Thank you so much. Are we happy to approve the schemes outlined to progress? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Forgive me if this is a slightly tenuous link and I'm out of turn, but the people I represent and the sort of areas I represent wouldn't forgive me if I didn't make the point that for a lot of communities, they seem to be locked out of all of these improvements. I represent Wetherby, which is on the outer northeast of Leeds, and there's a lot of other rural communities that simply don't have the same level of access to public transport, and the plans are in place don't seem to be doing anything to address that. I accept it's a difficult thing to do, but one of the things I'm keen to do with a voice around this table is to try and push that agenda, and I'd welcome the opportunity to work with all of you to actually say, yeah, it's difficult, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try and make things better in those communities, and there are quick wins we could go for, and I hope that's perhaps something within the spirit of this that can be taken on board, and we can look at opportunities to improve public transport for all parts of West Yorkshire, not just the ones that are easy to do.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. And can I say to the people of Wetherby that took part in our consultation on mass transit, we had quite a large cohort of individuals who did contribute. So people are very engaged in transport. Councillor Hinchcliffe, if you'd like to respond.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in. I mean, I absolutely agree. So I think we all want the same thing, which is better public transport for all our residents. It solves so many problems, you know, economically, climate change, everything. I think the challenge we've got is the national financial position, which is, you know, the bus recovery grant cut, BSOG cut, and therefore we're grappling to try and maintain the bus network we've got, and whereas we've got ambitions, I think all as local councillors, to improve services and expand the network. That's what I think we all want to do, and regardless of party politics, you know, we're all councillors, we sit around in residents' meetings, and that's what we hear from our residents. So I just want to assure you that we're all driven to do absolutely everything we can to connect the whole of the region together. And just, you know, if we can have that collaboration with that one voice speaking to government about how important the funding for public transport is, I think that'd be really welcome. So thank you for your contribution.
Terrific. So Councillor Lamb, then Councillor Poulsen.
Yeah, I'd just follow up and note the comment, funding's an issue, it's not the only thing. You have to have an ambition and direction to start with, so I'd just make the point that the West Yorkshire Transport Plan map didn't include out to North East Leeds, didn't include Wetherby, it was missed off, and that doesn't show an ambition for all parts of the city. So I accept your point about funding, but there is more we can do within the envelopes we've got.
Thank you. And as I've said earlier, to be a data-driven organisation, I'm lobbied for new train stations occasionally, and it's about the data. We need to make it stack up as value for money for the people of West Yorkshire. But absolutely hear your points, Councillor Lamb, and working together, I think we can get a better deal and a better connectivity for our region. So thank you, much appreciated. Councillor Poulsen.
Just something I've just noticed, on the mobility hubs, under the outputs and benefits, it mentions e-scooter facilities, including parking, and I didn't think we were allowed to use e-scooters on the public highway.
There are opportunities for pilots, and you'll have seen in Liverpool that they had e-scooters as part of their mobility package. So my understanding is that we haven't as yet signed off e-scooters. We've got 300 electric bikes being rolled out in Leeds. I'm really proud of that. And e-scooters aren't currently part of our thinking, but Ben can give us more of an update.
I think, Councillor Poulsen, you are correct. There are certain pilot areas in the country of which we are not one. So my understanding is that is kind of future-proofing for the point where when the government actually decides what the national regulations around e-scooters will be. But we will follow that up and circulate a note to members.
Yes.
Because at the moment we have a lot of antisocial behaviour issues with people using e-scooters, well, basically illegally, and in communities. So they are a bit of an issue that probably do need to be addressed.
And it's quite a contradiction, but in Liverpool, it's working really well for them because they're controlled. So the jury's out really about the efficacy of e-scooters, but they do definitely get people out of cars and onto other forms of mobility. But like Ben says, it's future-proofing our mobility hubs. But thank you for raising. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. Really welcome this report, particularly the aspects to do with accessibility. And it would be remiss of me, Wetherby having been mentioned, not to mention Tormorden at the other side of the West Yorkshire region, who have had a number of announcements over the years that we're going to get an accessible station at Tormorden, and really, really welcome this. Maybe this will finally be the time when Tormorden actually gets a lift in the station. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Scullion. Councillor Holsworth.
Thank you, Mayor. This was a point I raised at our briefing. One of the issues seems to me that you've got the accessibility, e-bikes, e-scooters, irrespective of their legality or otherwise at the moment. But an awful lot of, well, all buses that I've travelled on and a lot of trains refuse to take e-bikes and e-scooters because of the risk of them combusting, as I understand it. And I just wondered how this would fit with somebody commuting on an e-bike to a railway station or a bus station and then wanting to take their device with them, say to Leeds, and then commute further on, if the operators aren't accepting transportation of these devices.
Thank you, Councillor Holsworth. When I trialled an e-bike and commuted to Slough, I was able to take it on the train, but you have to pre-book. And that is a challenge for cyclists, that they're telling me that is annoying for them, that they've got to pre-book their bike on the train. But there wasn't an assessment of type of bike. But maybe if I could come to Simon, who might be a bit more of an expert than me.
Thank you, Matt. So certainly with regard to access of cycles, setting aside the issue around having to pre-book, as I understand it, there should not be any particular issues that users find. E-scooters, to come back to the discussion before, are only permitted at present within those very small designated pilot areas, and so it's quite appropriate at this stage, regardless of the nature of the risk, that the rail industry is not permitting e-scooters onto vehicles, because frankly they shouldn't have been able to get to the train station in the first place.
Thank you for that clarification. Okie doke, are we happy to approve of 4 schemes outlined to progress through to the assurance process and indicative approvals of the Combined Authorities funding contribution, full approvals of the CA's funding contribution for delivery and development costs, and approval of future assurance pathways and approval routes? All happy to approve. Thank you so much. That's great news, and I'm really pleased that we've got the levelling up money as well to improve our bus stations, to make them more welcoming places for travellers. Okie doke. Moving on to investment priority 6, culture, heritage and sport. This is 2 schemes recommended to the CA for progression through the assurance process and to help support our years of culture, following on from the spectacularly successful Leeds 2023 and Kirklees Year of Music. These schemes will take place before it's 2024, and they'll take place before the year that Bradford becomes UK's City of Culture. So it's Culturedale will build on the strong screen, location and community assets of the district, from the Peace Hall in Halifax up to Todmorden, and includes a programme of many events including screen heritage tie-in of the Anne Lister Festival. Wakefield 2024 will build on its brilliant assets across the district, including the Hepworth, the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and rooted in strong community engagement. One event in the programme which is really impressive is the Hatchling, which will amplify West Yorkshire's cultural and creative ambition, generating commissions and employment across creative and production services sectors, and obviously act as the curtain raiser for Bradford City of Culture 2025. Phil, anything further to add?
No, nothing further to add on top of that, thanks.
Good stuff. What a place to live, West Yorkshire. There is so much going on. So can we approve the 2 schemes to progress through the assurance process, and indicative approvals of the CA's funding contribution, full approvals of the CA's funding contribution for delivery and development, costs and approval of future assurance pathways and approval routes? All happy to approve. That's fantastic. Thank you all so much. So, item 22, which is minutes for information, but I would like to thank everybody for their attendance and contributions, and I know that some of us will be staying to have a conversation about the Better Homes Hub, so thank you for that. And just to end, I'd like to remind members of the date of the next meeting, July the 27th, and draw this meeting to an end. Thank you all so much for your contributions. Thank you.